Margaret Collins never imagined there would come a day when she would find herself standing outside the door of her own home. The bag of groceries slipped from her hands and fell onto the front porch the moment she realized the locks had been changed. Inside the house, Trevor Reed stood with his arms crossed, his expression cold enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. He did not look nervous or embarrassed. On the contrary, he looked at Margaret as if she were the one who did not belong there. For many years, the house in Charleston had been the pride of the Collins family. It was the home that Margaret and her late husband had spent their entire youth building together. Every corner held memories that could never be replaced. After her husband passed away, loneliness led Margaret to accept her daughter's suggestion. Jennifer and her husband moved in, claiming they wanted to help take care of her. The first few months were peaceful, but then everything began to change. Trevor gradually took control of every decision in the house. He replaced furniture without asking for permission. He removed treasured belongings that had once belonged to Margaret's late husband because he considered them outdated. On several occasions, he even rented out the guest house behind the property to strangers in order to earn extra income. Margaret felt uncomfortable, but she continued to endure it for the sake of her daughter. Jennifer saw everything. She knew her mother was hurting. Yet every time Margaret tried to speak up, Jennifer found a way to avoid the conversation. She always insisted that everyone should stay calm and preserve family harmony. That silence grew heavier with each passing day. Until that afternoon, Trevor walked up to Margaret and casually tossed an old key into her hand, a key that no longer had any value. His voice was ice cold. "From today on, you won't need this key anymore." Margaret froze. Trevor looked directly into her eyes. "If you don't like the new rules, you can find somewhere else to live." Jennifer stood behind the glass door. Her face had gone pale, but she still did not say a single word. In that moment, Margaret realized that she was no longer seen as the owner of the home she had spent a lifetime building. Quietly, she bent down and picked up the bag of groceries from the ground. Then she turned around and walked away. No one stopped her. No one followed her. And no one knew that her decision to leave in silence was about to uncover a secret Trevor had never seen coming. That night, Margaret barely slept. She sat alone in a small room at an old friend's house, staring out the window as the streetlights cast long shadows across the quiet yard. The pain of being pushed aside by her own family hurt more than any loss she had experienced since the day her husband passed away. The following morning, while sorting through several boxes of old documents she had brought with her, Margaret accidentally discovered a yellowed envelope worn by time. On the outside was the familiar handwriting of her late husband. Her hands trembled slightly. Inside was nothing more than a short letter and a business card from a property management company. Her husband had written that if there ever came a day when she no longer felt safe in her own home, she should contact the person whose name appeared on the card. Margaret called immediately. That same afternoon, she found herself sitting in the office of an attorney alongside a representative from the family trust. As the folders were opened, the room fell silent. Her late husband had anticipated everything years earlier. The house was not personally owned the way everyone had believed. It was protected by a special trust, and Margaret was the only person with the authority to make decisions regarding it. No one could sell it. No one could transfer it. No one could claim the right to use it without her signature. But what surprised everyone even more was what appeared in the next set of documents. For months, Trevor had repeatedly attempted to gain access to the property records using misleading information. Financial records revealed that he was buried in significant debt, something Jennifer knew absolutely nothing about. Every email, every application, every private exchange, all of it pointed to a frightening truth. Trevor had never intended to care for Margaret. From the very beginning, his real target had been the house. And now, that plan was on the verge of collapsing completely. At the end of the meeting, the attorney slowly closed the final folder. He looked at Margaret and said something that left her speechless. "Tomorrow, we are going to that house. And this time, the truth will be revealed in front of everyone." The following morning, the quiet street where the Collins family lived suddenly felt different. A black vehicle slowly pulled up in front of the house. Trevor was sitting in the living room when he noticed two men in suits step out of the car. A faint smirk appeared on his face. He assumed this was nothing more than Margaret's final attempt to intimidate him. Jennifer stood by the window, a growing sense of unease settling in her chest. A few minutes later, everyone was gathered in the living room. Several thick folders were placed on the table. No one spoke. The attorney began presenting the documents one by one. The house was under the control of the family trust. Margaret was the only person authorized to make decisions regarding the property. Trevor had absolutely no ownership rights. The smile slowly disappeared from his face. But the real shock was yet to come. Emails were printed out and placed on the table. Financial records were revealed. Private conversations were laid bare for everyone to see. Jennifer sat frozen as she discovered that her husband had been lying to her for years. Debts she had never known existed. A plan to sell the house once Margaret had been forced out. And even private messages in which Trevor mocked her family behind their backs. Tears rolled down Jennifer's cheeks. For the first time, she looked at the man beside her as though he were a complete stranger. Trevor tried to explain. Then he became angry. But no one believed him anymore. By the end of the day, he was forced to pack his belongings and leave the house. As Trevor's car disappeared down the street, a familiar sense of peace returned. Over the following weeks, Jennifer apologized to her mother again and again, not through empty words, but through sincere actions every single day. Slowly, the bond between mother and daughter began to heal, and once again, Margaret sat in the familiar living room where she had once believed she had lost everything. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the window. Everything looked exactly the same, but one thing had changed. She no longer questioned her own worth. Because sometimes the greatest strength is not found in fighting back. Sometimes it is found in having the patience to let the truth speak for itself.